All right, welcome into the Joe Thomas half hour of the program. And quite honestly, the setting with which we find the Hoff would put me in a good mood here on a Monday.
It's spectacular.
Otherwise not been good. The Hoff appears to be in what I would describe for the audience, and if you're watching on the YouTube, you can certainly see he is in what appears to be the perfect hunting lodge ever created by man. It's good to see you, Hoff.
It's good to see you guys. You wouldn't believe how many of the world's problems were solved sitting around this fireplace. Z solved a few of them when he was here for turkey camp at the farm. And that's what we're here to do today. We're here to solve the world's problems, which the Browns' problems are the world's problems on a Monday after what we saw on Sunday. It's what the world needs. We need to solve this. We need to fix this.
How much time do we have?
Well, we got a half hour, so we're gonna have to get right to it. Yeah, we're gonna have to work quickly. Hoff, here's the thing that's been troubling to me watching it, and I'm gonna start with the offense because I think that is. Special teams we'll get there. Defensively at this point, they've done all you could ask. I mean, you think about from the second half of the Bengals game through the first half of the Ravens game, the Browns defense gave up 88 yards in 4 quarters. 88 yards to the number one passing offense from 2024, Jeez. The number one running offense of 2024, to a team, by the way, in the Ravens, for their part, who had 80, who had over 400 yards on 50 plays the week before against a team that many people think is going to go to the Super Bowl, the Buffalo Bills. So defense, you get a pass. And the ironic thing, or not ironic, the sad thing is you hold those teams to 88 yards over 4 quarters, and you don't outscore them.
No.
You do not outscore them. So this goes to the offensive problems right now. When Joe Flacco was here last time, he averaged nearly 8 yards in the air per attempt. This year it's down around 4. Our ability to hit vertical shots with Joe Flacco was excellent last time around. This year it is not happening at all. And teams are playing 2 coverages against us predominantly, Hoff. Cover 1, which means your guys got to win. You got to create separation. And they're playing cover 6, which is that too high that's designed in many ways to eliminate verticals. It's cover 2 on one side, cover 4 on the other side. We're seeing those coverages at one of the top rates in the NFL across the board. What is going on here, Huff? Why can this offense not get anything going down the field?
Well, if you remember, the conversation that we had at the beginning of the season was, all right, if our defense can get back to number 1 overall form, which they have, which was what we saw a couple years ago when they were able to make the playoffs and they had Joe Flacco at the helm and he was throwing the ball down the field. But the other component of saying, hey, we can have a successful season, we can have a team we're excited about, we feel good about, if we have that defense that comes back from a couple years ago. But then the other thing was, we said we have to be able to run the ball effectively, because that is the linchpin on offense for us to be able to take those shots down the field, because I think everybody was realistic. We got Jerry Jeudy, who's a good receiver, but we don't have complementary 2s and 3s right now that can get open, that can beat man coverage. And Njoku's doing a great job. Harold Fannin Jr. doing a great job for a rookie, but you don't have those other vertical threats right now that can just get open and beat man coverage. And if you can't run the ball, it's not opening up things in the play action game in the back end, because teams don't respect your run game. They don't have to commit extra defenders into the box. Their safeties are not creeping up on the line of scrimmage to make their run fits. And so nothing works on offense if you're not able to effectively run the football with this iteration of what we want the Browns offense and defense and the Browns team to look like, to have possible success with the talent that we have this season.
Yeah, the reality of the situation is if a team's going to sit in too high against you, and the Ravens were about 50-50, which is one of the higher rates to have middle field open in the league nowadays, you have to be able to run them out of those looks. And to your point, we have not been able to do it. The other thing, and the reason that it's more cover 1 than cover 3, says to me that teams don't fear, to the Hoff's point, our weaponry.
No.
And here's the other thing. Isaiah Bond can run. You got to at least give him some shots.
Just air it out, man.
At least throw it. We're not doing that either. So he's basically been out there, and there have been times you can watch tape where he certainly has been open. The ball hasn't gone its way. And, yes, pressure has been an issue, but I thought often yesterday there were the sack strip fumble, for example, and a couple of the others. He's just holding the ball because there's nowhere to go with the ball, or at least not that he is seeing in the natural progression of things. I think Kurt Warner made a very good point the other day. He's like, people keep showing me these videos where some guy's open here. If you understand the concept and that guy's the 4th read, like, just because he's open right away, the quarterback's not taught to look there.
No,
it takes
right.
time to get there, but I'm nervous because the book seems to be out on us. And a lot of people, what they're doing, Hoff, is showing too high initially to get us to either can a play, get to a second one, and then rotating into that middle of the field closed, but we're not taking advantage of that.
Yeah, the big thing is your receivers got to be able to beat one-on-one man coverage, and you got to be able to effectively run the ball. And those are two things we haven't been able to do. And I think Flacco realized, okay, I'm going to lean on my defense, so I'm going to be somewhat risk averse, especially to start the season the way he was in Cincinnati. Didn't make many mistakes, a lot of checkdowns, a lot of short throws. You saw that at the beginning of the Ravens game. But I think he's hit the realization that I'm going to have to start forcing the ball a little bit more if we want to be able to move the ball at all effectively on offense, unless something changes. And you hope that with the addition of Quinshon Judkins coming back and doing a nice job in his very first NFL game, a guy that basically had, a couple practices, no training camp whatsoever, and they just throw him out there and does a serviceable job. And you hope maybe he can become that workhorse back for you. But it's a frightening feeling when you are not able to win in one-on-one, because I've been in some of those situations where we just didn't have the dogs at receiver. And if those guys can't get open, they can commit a lot of extra dudes to the run game because they're not worried about getting the ball thrown over their head. They're not worried about your receivers shaking their cornerbacks one-on-one and making big plays down the field. And then that just compounds your problems in the run game. And to your point about showing cover 2 and then creeping down to 1, like, if you're doing a lot of cans and you're calling 2 plays in the huddle and it's a 2 high, 1 high check where you can check it, like, the easy correction is, okay, every time we can it, they're going to go from a 2 to a 1. Well, now you just fake can it. But if you can't run the ball and you can't throw the ball, where are you going to go? It doesn't really matter what your strategy is as far as on the line of scrimmage trying to fool them and get them into certain coverages, because you're not able to take advantage of it.
Hoff, I think the key word in football at any level is trust. Quarterback has to trust the coach, got to trust his receivers, got to trust his line. Running back's got to trust that the line does its job, and the line has to trust that the running back's going to do what he's going to do. We're 2 games in. Offensively, it's been very rough. Where is the trust breaking down in your vantage point offensively for this team?
Well, I think right now the trust between receiver and quarterback is not there, because receiver's hitting his back foot. Quarterback's hitting his back foot, expecting receiver maybe number 1 or 2 to give him a window to throw the ball into. He's not seeing that. They're either not getting open, or he's moving off it too quickly, or he's just being too risk averse to throw the ball when there's a little crack and a little window. And then I think what happens then is, like I mentioned earlier, like, Flacco is starting to realize, okay, we need to do something on offense. We need to start taking some chances. Unfortunately, throughout Flacco's career, some of the problems that he's had was when he did try to take a lot of chances in a game and it turns into a turnover fest, because those interceptions in his career have come in bunches when he feels like he has to put the team on his shoulder and try to make some plays. Now, he's got the arm for it, but if your guys aren't getting open and you don't trust you can throw it into those tight windows, and then you don't trust that they're going to be in the right spots at the right time, and then you're hanging on to the football, now your O-line doesn't trust you to get rid of the ball on time. Now they're doing things that they're not coached to do, because they're thinking, well, shoot, I got to hang on for 4 or 5 seconds, so I need to take risks that I normally wouldn't take to try to keep my guy further from the quarterback than I normally would need to, because I don't know how long he's going to hang on to it. Now the trust is just breaking down all across the board. And I think the thing that you can say is, all right, there's not going to be any receivers that are going to come in here that are all of a sudden going to be getting wide open all the time. Like, that comes in the draft and free agency, and you just don't pick up those guys in the middle of the season. But I think potentially some different concepts maybe for these receivers to try to help them get open, specifically starting with being effective in running the ball. Because if you can run the ball and teams are worried about you running the ball a little bit, you're going to have more opportunities and more windows, more green grass in the secondary, because they have to commit an extra defender down to stop your run game. So I think, to me, there's not easy fixes, right? When your offense looks like this through 2 weeks in the NFL, there's no superheroes going to walk through the door. But what you can do is you can put all of your resources in practice on fixing and working on the run game and trying to figure out, how do we have an effective run game that teams are going to be afraid of? And then you spend all of your effort on that, and maybe the remaining 5%, outside of all, maybe 5%, you're like, all right, how do we figure out a play action game that our receivers like, that Flacco feels comfortable with, that we can get some shots down the field? But it all starts with effectively running the ball.
So that's what we got to do on offense. And I think and a lot of that comes, I think, on the offensive line as well. It's got to create holes for guys in the run game. We're still getting hit, behind the line of scrimmage. I think, unfortunately, far too often in this one. I mentioned in the first week for our ground game, it was, guys had as many yards after contact basically as they had yards.
Yeah.
And that's a tough situation. In this one, for example, Quinshon Judkins, who did a heck of a job, by the way, 10 carries, 61 yards, 57 yards after contact. 57 yards after contact. That's 5.7 a carry. That is an outrageously elite number. Dylan Sampson had 7 yards after contact. He had 6 yards rushing.
Right.
So this is a team where, when you want to run the ball, you got to give these guys an opportunity to get down the field so that they can get some downhill momentum going.
Absolutely.
What are you seeing from the line? Because that is not what we come to expect from a Cleveland Browns offensive line.
Yeah, and they got veterans out there that should be able to open up holes in the running game. I think it hurts not having Jack Conklin out there. He's a tremendous run blocker, but that doesn't excuse all the mistakes because you still have guys that are veterans that are out there that should be able to effectively run the ball. I mean, one of the things that did hurt, obviously not having Quinshon here puts them on the offensive line and Quinshon on different pages, and the details are just not there in the run game because he just wasn't around. But you're going to have to make up for lost time. It's just the position you're in. You're going to have to figure it out and make it work. But really the thing that I'm seeing from the offensive line, it's just the details. It's just the tiny little hat placement issues. It's guys just maybe taking a slight misstep to start their angle and how they're hitting the defensive tackle, how they're blocking the linebacker on the certain angle. Like all those little details matter on every play. And that's why the run game, when it works great, it's symphony, it's beauty. It's amazing because it takes all 5, sometimes 6, sometimes 7, if you throw the fullback in there, to be on the same page, to be blocking perfectly in unison and in tandem with the same hat placements, the running back at the same rhythm, hitting the same landmarks. But you have one guy off and it throws the whole play off. And it's just been too much of that so far. And so they've got to fix that. They've got to figure it out. They've got to make sure that the details are the difference in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday practice when you get a chance to actually work on this stuff. You're working on your game plan stuff against the defense that you're going to see. So you're looking at, all right, what are the most important things in this play for all of us to understand that if we don't do this, we're not going to have a successful play. And then you got to get full buy-in and full trust from that full unit. And I mean, there's no secrets in football. Like it's practicing with a purpose. It's figuring out the game plan that you like to be able to take advantage of the defense and the little intricacies that maybe they're not very good at, where their weaknesses are. But then you got to go out and execute it during the week and then have confidence and be able to do it on Sundays.
Hoff, how do you change one of the 2 points of emphasis this season were obviously turnovers, and we talk about every week on a Friday, be clean on special teams. Can we just be even? We're not even trying to win special teams. We just want to be even on special teams. We're in a position now, we're in a turnover deficit. Is it 9 straight games going back to last year? We're in a turnover deficit. We can't get special teams right to save our lives. I mean, we're getting punts blocked. God bless Corey for hanging it out and making it work, but it's
and another
every
punt
game.
return this game.
And a punt return. Yeah,
both games.
Yeah, it's too much. So how do you – and I guess this is a bigger issue for the whole team, right? Because the one thing that has been great has been the defense, but they can only do so much. How do you make sure that the things you're talking about, like implementing those things in practice, getting on the same page, getting it fixed, how do you do that when you have what has been kind of a mess here 2 games through?
Yeah, special teams obviously been very disappointing. Bubba Ventrone, former teammate of mine, we all think that he's a very good special teams coach, but unfortunately the results on the field are your resume. And through 2 weeks, you've missed kicks, you've had kicks blocked, you've had turnovers and penalties on special teams. And for a team that wants to win with defense in the run game, you got to be great on special teams. And one thing I learned from Romeo Crennel my first couple of years in the NFL that I liked, and I think that works on defense especially and on special teams, is like, hey, here's our game plan. We're going to do these things. If we don't do a good job of it on Thursday, we're just throwing it out of the game plan, because there's no sense in trying to go out there and thinking we're going to get it right Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, because we won't. So we'll just have a smaller game plan. We're going to cut things way back, and we're going to do things that we can execute and that we can do competently. We may not win special teams, but you know what? We're not going to lose it on special teams. And so I think they're going to be going back to the drawing board, one, figuring out, all right, where are the mistakes coming from? Is it one guy here and there? Okay, well, then maybe we're doing too many different concepts. Is it the same guys over and over again? Well, all right, we're going to remove them, because typically in special teams, it's your backups that are playing those positions. And maybe we got to find somebody else to play that position because you're not giving us enough on offense or defense to justify putting you out there on special teams and having you make these critical errors that are causing turnovers and huge plays in the game.
Yeah, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a frustrating thing, and you're right. The margin of error for this team, like if this team's going to win games, it has to play clean football. It's not going to be sexy. This is not going to be a sexy brand of football, but that's how this team is going to have to win games. And then to that point, you mentioned, defensively, we talked about how good this defense has been. Miles has been spectacular, but if you're a team, let's say when the Hoff you're playing, we can leave you on an island at left tackle. But when you go out, sometimes you cannot we can't keep acting like you're at left tackle. And I thought yesterday in the game, it was very tough. Once we're already without MJ Emerson, then Denzel's out with cramps, and we're playing man coverage. And it was like, and I feel bad for the kid, but it was like the Ravens, Todd Monken was like, oh, Cam Mitchell's in the game. First play he's in the game, right at him, touchdown. They go at him, 3 different touchdowns at him. Miles Harden, touchdown at him. And we're playing, I was looking up in 2023 when we were the number 1 defense, we did play a ton of man. That's our calling card. And, we were very good, and 80, like a 78 to 80 rating allowed. So far this year in man coverage, and that thinks about how big the rating must have been this week, because in week 1 we absolutely shut down the Cincinnati Bengals. We're giving up 130 rating in coverage and basically 10 yards and a target in coverage in man 1. And that's all from last week because, again, there was nothing week 1. How do you have to adjust on the fly who you are? Because it's sometimes it's horses for courses, right? They say that in golf all the time.
Yep.
But, I'm just looking right now and talking about the secondary. This is Baltimore. Their secondary, their cornerback room, they have 6 corners. They have 3 1s, a 2, a 4, and an undrafted free agent. Our cornerback room is Denzel and Newsome are both 1s. Then you've got undrafted free agent. Cam Mitchell's a 5, Miles Harden's a 7. There's going to be a drop-off. There's a difference between 1s and 2s and not in this league.
Yeah, I think that from Jim Schwartz's perspective, they had obviously great results after the first week. And so the game plan is going to be really similar. And to your point, his calling card has always been to play a lot of man coverage. That's where they're going to be at their best. But there is a huge drop off from our second to our third coverage player. So I think what they were probably thinking in that game was, all right, it was great in the week 1. Let's keep putting these guys out there, these young guys, and see if they can continue to raise their level of play and all of a sudden become really, really good players. Obviously, it wasn't working during that game. If I had to give maybe a piece of, if I was Jim Schwartz, this was my argument. Well, we're behind most of the game. We have to make something happen. We're still hoping that those guys maybe early getting picked on was a little bit of an outlier, and they're going to figure it out because we're talking to them on the sideline. We want to give them a chance throughout most of this game. And because we're behind, we're more worried right now about them running the ball and beating us like that and sucking down the clock than we are with them hitting plays in the passing game, even though that's obviously what happened. But in that instance, it's like we're trying to get back in the game. We're trying to make something happen. It's a continuation a little bit of what happened last week. And we're hoping that maybe they can flip the script. And you know what? If it doesn't work throughout this game, we were already behind. We didn't want to die by a million paper cuts, and going into week 3, we're going to have to change our strategy because obviously teams are watching that on film and they're seeing the different players that they can pick on in man coverage, and the good quarterbacks are going to be able to check to it and find the matchup they like and then go at it. So being able to disguise now and maybe start playing some cover 5, which is man underneath with 2 deep safeties, where now you can start playing some help games with some of these guys that are getting picked on. And then you still have Newsome and you have Denzel on their island one-on-one playing man coverage with those guys. But the challenge is going to like a cover 5 against a quarterback like a Lamar Jackson. As soon as he sees that, he's taking off. And you got 5 dudes that are turning their back. And then the only people that can tackle them are your 2 safeties who are deep. So it's not a great coverage versus Lamar. So I'm sure Jim was thinking about all those things in the game and probably in that moment was like, all right, they're probably just going to keep running the ball. I just don't want to let them run the clock out. So let's just keep doing what we're doing, lean on these dudes and give them the entire game to prove if they can do it or not.
All right, Hoff, time for the Trench Report, brought to you by Big Fig, the mattress made for more, crafted in Cleveland, just like our Browns. What do you make of the position that around here you made famous? We got crazy stuff at tackle. Jack Hurd, obviously, we know that. But then this platooning with DeWand and KT. What do you make of the tackle situation as we currently stand?
Well, I think DeWand played a little bit better in the game when he was out there this week than he did last week. And so that steady progression, I think, is positive. But I'm hoping that he understands he needs to get in better shape to be able to play a full game, because I think that was the report coming out of there.
The heat.
That it was hot. You know, I get it. I played in September games where, you know, it's been cold for a couple weeks and all of a sudden it's, you know, upper 70s and it's sunny and you're sweating and it feels hot and you're getting tired. But you have to be in good enough shape to be able to play through those hot games, because hey, you're going to play some games in Carolina, in Tampa, in New Orleans, in the Dome, which gets super hot. Like, you're going to have to deal with that. And so if you want to be a great NFL player, I hope that this is a wake-up call for him a little bit about, hey, I really need to get in better shape, and that's up to me. That's not somebody else being able to get me in shape, because I need to play every snap because that's what the position demands.
Yeah, so it sounded like it was kind of a something they decided on before the game, was that he was going to get a few plays or series off every now and then to, you know, and it was hot there. I'll be honest. I was down on the field. It was very humid. It was a very Maryland.
But it ain't Tampa.
No, it certainly was not Tampa. It was surprising. Listen,
It's in its
Denzel,
80s,
who's an
right?
incredibly conditioned athlete, missed the majority of the game with cramps.
It made me think that I don't know. I almost thought that maybe there was an illness with Denzel. Like, that just was.
That's what they said. All we were told was cramps.
Yeah. But I
So-
just think as a professional, I mean, he's in great a shape as he is. It just
Of
seems
course.
impossible that he would. I don't know. Who knows?
The whole thing was
strange,
surprising. I mean,
yeah.
and then KT Levison went in, and there were a couple plays where he went the wrong way, and you could see Joel and everybody being like, "What?" And Flacco got a hit, and then they said, "That's it. I don't care. Like you're
That's enough.
that's
yeah.
enough. We've seen enough of that."
And I think one thing that I learned as I got older was, yes, you can fight through when you're starting to get those cramps. I used to get like the heat migraine headaches when I would sweat a lot in really hot games where I'd start seeing stars and it was hard to see the defense. And I learned maybe about my third year that if it's a game that it's 70 degrees or above, I'm getting an IV before the game. And I'm telling those trainers to have one queued up for me at halftime, because if I run it at halftime and I'm feeling like I'm getting drained, I need those fluids right away. On the sideline, I was drinking Gatorades with 3 Gator Lights, which is basically like electrolyte salt powder that they put in there, because I wanted to stay ahead of it. And I knew that that was an easy insurance policy for my insurance guy there, Z, that I could take and make sure that I wasn't going to have these problems. And so yes, I joke, and we've joked before about how long it took me to get ready by the time I was in my last year in the NFL. But you go through these things as a player. Okay, it wasn't that hot by like a temperature standpoint. It wasn't like we were playing in Tampa, but it was hot and I was sweating a lot and it affected how I could play. Is there something I can do to mitigate that in pregame? Okay, if it's over 70 degrees, I'm getting an IV. And I'm staying ahead of that, because once you get those cramps and once you start feeling that fatigue from the lack of fluids and from that heat, like, it's hard to catch back up to that. So hopefully DeWand understands those things. It's, of course, obviously being in better shape, which he's in better shape than he has been in the past, but still not good enough to play the whole game, which is the requirement of the position. But then also, what can I do from a hydration standpoint outside of just drinking water, which, okay, drink more water. Well, I'm just going to pee more before the game then.
Right.
But I need to get electrolytes in my body days before. I need to add more carbs, which allows my cells to expand a little bit to absorb more water and more of those electrolytes. And then before the game, if it's hot, I'm going to get my IV right away, because there's no downside. Yes, it takes another 30 minutes to sit in there and get an IV on the table before the game, but it's worth it, because I'm going to feel better and I'm not going to get worn out and get cramps during the game, and I don't have to worry about that.
DeWand played, and he played well in this game. 1 pressure allowed on 44 pass blocking opportunities. That's very good. He had allowed 7 in week 1. For him, and I know you've been mentoring him, and I don't know kind of how that's going on during the season, but you know, you go back and you watch him, his one-on-ones with Trey Hendrickson, who was the reigning sack champion week 1. He didn't allow a single pressure on Trey Hendrickson, and yet he allowed 7 pressures in the game. So it feels like he's capable, obviously, of doing it against the very best. And we've seen his tape against whether it be Micah or TJ Watt or Nick Bosa, and he can do it. How do you get that to be consistent? Because I think that's, if he does that, he has a chance to be a Pro Bowler if he can be consistent.
And that was the theme of all of my conversations I had with him in training camp, and that's continued to be the theme as I text with him during the season. Like, bro, look at your potential. Look at your size and your athleticism and your strength and what you can be if you have the proper fitness level and you have the proper attention to detail during the week. And I was really happy that I saw an improvement we talked after the game about a couple things with his hands in the pass pro that kind of was shortening the corner. And it was great to see that improvement being made. And to me, that's when I have hope and optimism in a guy, right? Is like, okay, these are the corrections we need to make. You can't fix them all at one time, but if we can correct one of them and keep everything else the same, like we're making progress and we're heading in the right direction. So I was happy with that. But for him, understanding that the fitness is so important, because as you get tired, fatigue makes a coward of us all. And it starts affecting your brain and how you're thinking and the details that it's going into every single play and every single time that you're walking up to the line of scrimmage. And so that fitness is just so important, not only for just going out and being able to run and play and do your assignment, but also for how the lack of fatigue will affect you when you're on the sideline, when you're in the huddle, when you're getting ready to get that next snap. And I think about it like, I've been hanging tree stands last week at the farm, and I try not to do more than 5 hours of like hanging in the tree, because it's very mentally and physically tiring. And I can feel myself getting lazy, which in that situation, when you're 30 feet up in a tree, you don't want to allow yourself to be that way, because you have to be very, very, very detail oriented and like on a razor's edge with every movement you make, because it's you and, a 30-foot fall. And so you don't want to let yourself get into that situation where fatigue is starting to play on your mind and how you're approaching things and the corners that you cut when you get tired.
Well, Hoff and Z, the good news with all of this is that our reward for the 0-2 start is we get to play a team that's really struggling in the Green Bay Packers, and we get to do so. They get an extra 3 days of rest, too.
Yeah. Well, they need it.
So they need the rest to get right, and so we have that. I mean, they're a buzzsaw. I think they've been the most impressive team in the NFL the first 2 weeks. Obviously, you continue to reside in the great state of Wisconsin. This is a mammoth situation here on Sunday with them coming to town, is it not?
It is. And like you mentioned, the way you so eloquently set the table here, they're coming off of a really good Thursday night performance. They got a little bit extra time to prepare and get their bodies rested and healed up. But I think the Browns, they got to realize that their back is against the wall, especially on offense. Like, we need to show a different product out there, or the defense is going to start losing hope and optimism. And when that happens, you start to lose their effort and their preparation. And then you're not going to get the same level of success from the defense as the season wears on. If they feel like every time we go out there, it's the same old story that our offense can't piss a drop, and we're just wearing ourselves out to force a punt that three plays later, we're going to be running back out there. And so I think hopefully that mentality where, hey, our backs are against the wall and we need to put it together a better showing on offense, is enough of a wake-up call that they make some of these changes and they pay a bit more attention to the details in practice. And, it's such a boring thing to say, but that is the difference, especially for a team that is going to try to win on very, very razor-thin margins with defense and running the ball and playing good on special teams. You got to understand that those details in practice are not optional, and it's not optional for any single person that walks out there and is on the offensive side of the football.
No, and it feels like right now, to kind of the point we were making, that this is we're kind of on the precipice of something here. And obviously Joe Flacco's the starting quarterback. Dylan Gabriel came in relief. I don't think there was ever a scenario we thought we'd be in this game, Baltimore, that Dylan Gabriel was going to actually get action without the event of an injury. But yeah, it could get late, as we say, it could get late early because of just how tough this schedule is. You mentioned we got to get back to running the football, that kind of is the linchpin to all of it. I thought Quinshon, again, he came through and looked very good in that opener. But this was a passing attack with Joe Flacco that was, 300-plus yards a game in 2023. And so far, he ended up at 290 week 1, 199 this week. It just, the verticality isn't there. It almost feels like teams are able to simultaneously, and this is what scares me, we talked about the top, kind of put a bow on it. They're simultaneously able to kind of put the umbrella over us and say you're not getting the ball down the field, but at the same time, we're not able to do anything short. I mean, we threw a screen to Dylan Sampson that Kyle Hamilton read, and that's -3 yards. Pass to Judkins, -4 yards. Like, it's almost like they don't respect us going over the top, but then they're also saying we don't respect you doing anything short either, and they've eliminated everything somehow.
Well, that's the problem, and that's what the results are when your offense is not doing a very good job. But on that,
should we just all go have a drink? I mean,
yes.
Is that where are we at the have a drink on a Monday, Hoff? Is that what's
time for the bourbon,
only
baby.
things?
Let's go.
Let's go.
No, to your point, Z, on that screen, and like I was saying about the details, like it's like as a player, you'd sit there and the coach would just hammer it on the details. Everything matters, and you just get worn out hearing it. But it really is the difference because on that screenplay, the timing was a little bit off. I don't know if the running back was a little bit too wide on his aiming point because I'm not sure which play that was and where the aiming point exactly was, or the center was just a hair slow. And if the center's out just a little bit faster, if the running back's just not quite as wide, which I don't know if he's not supposed to be there or not, and that's my caveat. But that timing between those two guys is so important because once you make that block, now you've got a convoy of 2 or 3 other guys that are running down the field. The coverage has already dropped, and so you've got a great play. But just the tiniest little detail about how quickly you are releasing. Where's my aiming point when I do release? Where's my aiming point when I'm trying to catch the ball as the running back? And if you're off on those, then the whole play is screwed up. And an opportunity to make a big explosive play when you're still possibly in the game and it's gone because you're just off by that much, And so just having that urgency in practice and understanding practice is when you make those corrections. You can't go out on Sunday and hope to do it, right? And that's why the practice is so important. That's why you have to take it so seriously.
Hoff, you're the best, buddy. Thanks for your time as always on a Monday.
Appreciate it, guys. Great to talk with you. Always feel better after chatting with you fellas.
That's it. That's all you need. A little bit of the elixir. The great Hoff joining us for the Joe Thomas half hour of the program. And that'll do it for us as well. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.